In today's episode of the Pathmonk Presents podcast, I have some very interesting guests here with me today. I'm with Paul Davidescu and Santiago Orozco, and they are essentially heading up Tengu. And Tengu is doing some very interesting work in the marketing arena. The folks are, essentially it's a B2B LinkedIn marketing and sales agency focused on helping fast-moving teams like many of you guys out there to really, pick up their game on LinkedIn and anything of in relating to their growth channels. So I'm very curious to learn from the both of them today and see what Tango is all about. Welcome to the show, guys.
Dankeschön. We're really excited to be here.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having
Yeah.
us.
Hey. So Paul, yeah, maybe Paul, kick it off. Like, give us an idea. What is Tango all about?
Sure. Look, the way we boil it down is Tangu removes the friction that keeps people from connecting meaningfully with either their key referral partners or their customers. And like the way we see that basically is that we're sales prospecting on autopilot, right? And I think the way people are doing sales prospecting now is super tedious, not very authentic, and adds to the pile of shit out there, which is generally referred to as spam. So how do you still reach out at mass, but not let it suck up most of your day? And the way I see it is that we want to optimize your time to sell the dream and help customers face to face. Customers don't want automations, they want real solutions, real consulting. How do you build that trust? So basically, we help you leverage your biggest longest lasting investment and yet most underutilized, and that is your personal brand, primarily on LinkedIn is not so much a resume anymore. It's a way to weaponize your brand, your values, and connect with like-minded folks. And we'll do everything up until letting you show up to a meeting and get to know someone. Everything before, the prospecting, the messaging, the personal branding, so someone's going to actually want to connect with you. That's what we do with you. And a way to think then why it relates to kind of our brand name. What's Tango? Well, Tango is like a tango dance for all those salsa and tango dancers out there. People need to move in the same direction. And again, I think due to spammers, online saturation, Zoom fatigue. Hey, we're in a pandemic world here, right? People have their shields up more than ever. And ironically, people have to network more than before because we are now all virtual. So again, this is all manifested into the ethos of our product, which is always evolving. But generally speaking, like those are the big pains we solve, and we've done it for the last decade. 250 customers in SaaS, individual founders, professional services, food and beverage, both online and offline retailers. And it's a process we've battle tested, just something we're most proud about.
Yeah, I was actually about to ask you, like, if you could give us a little bit of an insight into the client base. You gave us a glimpse there. What is a typical company? Is it, are we talking enterprise? Are we talking like small, medium businesses? Does it run the gamut? Maybe you can give us an insight.
It can run the gamut, but basically it's going to be usually best utilized by, let's call it either a sole founder who really needs to go to market, but is so bogged down with operations, potentially hiring staff, and really like core product things, right? And they may not even really like sales. They may not feel great doing it, but they know they got to do it. So it starts from like that core founder to, let's say, the growing team. You've got 2, 3, 4, 5 people on your sales team. And as a manager, you're like, man, are they prospecting properly? Are they checking their LinkedIn messages? Are they actually approaching a sale genuinely? And if the prospect says no, do they have a system behind how they collect the email, plant a seed for the future? There's a lot of management that I think sales leaders don't have the time to do, or it's just a huge pain. So part of what we do is if you're a founder, we will optimize your time to do what you do best. And that's usually product, working with customers, operations, and selling the dream. Anything before the sales process and after, so it's measurement, and again, before it's prospecting, we will do with and for you. And that's massively, massively important, especially if you're trying to grow at breakneck speeds. So that's really the biggest use case. So again, founders or fast growing teams. And I talked about the industries. Usually it's SaaS. It could be professional services. It could be just, again, any growing team that usually it's B2B, because on LinkedIn, you're not really going B2C, right? You're looking for someone's job title online, and it's going to be a B2B relationship. It can be a customer, and what's actually often most overlooked is who is someone who can be a referral partner for you for when you book a meeting with them, it's less of a scripted sales pitch where everyone knows, okay, it's going to be a sales pitch, to, hey, let's build a mutually beneficial relationship. And that's kind of the magic of our product, which we'll talk about later, is you're doing sales, but really you're networking and you're adding value. And that's, I think, is the thing that lets you kind of book a sales meeting, but not really make it seem like a sales meeting, and not even really have it as a sales meeting. You're doing it to connect with someone generally and exchange industry knowledge. And that's some of the magic we'll reveal a bit later on.
Cool, super interesting. Maybe you could give us an idea, right? Because how do those founders up to mid-marketing team members or leaders, how do they actually come across Tango? Like, what is the different maybe channels that you leverage? What is the journey that they could go through? Are you going LinkedIn all the way yourself? Like, you're doing something completely different?
Yeah, I mean, look, eat your own dog food, right? Practice what you preach. So yes, we use LinkedIn, and most people, in Santiago will riff on this in a second, they don't realize this is done through a bot because there's a genuine way that we do it. And look, practice what you preach. Listen, for the longest time, we sold different digital services, which had varying levels of success. But we started in the restaurant market. We weren't the customer. It was hard to empathize with the customer if you're not testing it on yourself and in the trenches. So we learned that pretty quick. And thanks to the pandemic, we had to basically strip away anything that wasn't adding extreme value and that we wouldn't use ourselves. And that was a huge X factor for us. So LinkedIn's the big thing, and guess what? When you do one thing really well, you get those referrals, and and that's the usual answer. Oh, it's through referrals. Well, what do you mean through referrals? No, it's LinkedIn, case studies, which means good SEO on your website, probably using something like your product to make sure you have those micro moments, and then it's about, again, more case studies, blogs. Really, SEO is a huge thing. Huge thing. It's referral partners, which we find through LinkedIn, and then it's content marketing. But that's really like the things that we've doubled down on as far as how we choose to spend our time selling and educating people through our branding and our marketing funnel.
Yeah, and I should add also, like, grassroots, like, sales, right? So, like, we are on LinkedIn every day. We're, like Paul said, eating our own dog food, using our own services to generate our own opportunities. And then once we generate our opportunities, it's the sales process. It's following up, it's nurturing them, it's staying top of mind, it's adding value, and then controlling it until they are ready to close.
Yep.
Right. So all the above.
Makes a whole lot of sense. It's actually, sometimes refreshing, that you guys actually do what you preach. It's not always the case, actually, to be very frank.
It's true.
It's really funny, actually. I enjoy this all the time because when I hop on calls with people that I meet on LinkedIn, and I break it to them like, hey, full transparency, how we got to this conversation is through automation. They're usually like, whoa, what? Oh, that's super interesting. Tell me about it, right? Like, bring me into your world. Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? This, like, I usually tell them I really had a very little role to play in actually getting us to this conversation. This is all happening because we have a system in play that's targeting you and having a conversation with you and getting us to this point, right? And they're usually mind blown. And then from that point on, it's like, all right, tell me more about it. Okay, cool. Well, here's what we do.
Yeah, maybe you guys can give me a quick breakdown, right? For somebody who's listening in, what is, something that, somebody can get with Tango that is kind of difficult to get maybe somewhere else in the market?
So, we're talking about like LinkedIn automation products and stuff like that. Like, there's a bunch out there, right? There's a few big ones that, they're getting well known and they're getting some notoriety out there. But what makes us different is that, like, we're not just the tool. We're not just providing you with the tool, also providing you with the knowledge and training, and we're literally hand holding you through the process, right? Again, like, we've learned how to use this ourselves. We've innovated it and we've gotten some amazing results ourselves, and we're passing that knowledge on to our customers. That's one kind of a facet of it. The other one is, like, sometimes busy business owners won't have the time to do this themselves, but they know they still need to generate opportunities. They need to generate business meetings. And so we can actually put them completely on autopilot, where we just manage everything for them, manage all their conversations, all their connections, et cetera, and book meetings directly to their calendar, right? So we're either hand-holding them and empowering them to use the tool and giving them the information and knowledge to get from 0 to 1 and then from 1 to 100, or we're literally taking them to the step where they want to be, which is just taking on business meetings where we're booking them directly for them. And there's a few steps in between that I didn't mention, which is, we're taking a look at, right, like, what is your profile saying? Like, are you using your profile as an online resume, or are you using it as a sales tool, right? Like, I like to think of my profile as a little mini landing page. Within the first 10 seconds of someone landing on my profile, they should know exactly what it is that I do and why it's relevant for them to connect with me. I'm also like not talking about the fact that I'm the West Coast president of my company on my headline. I'm talking about who it is that I help, what it is that I do, and what benefits I provide, right? And so right away, when they're looking for someone in my space, I'm going to stand out, right? I'm not saying that, I'm an account executive, or I'm the president, or I'm the VP, or I'm the CEO. I'm not saying any of that. If they're gonna look up that information, they can scroll down to my experience section and they can see that there. But I'm talking to my customer. I'm not using my profile as an online resume.
Totally. And what I should add there is, look, this is the pain point. It's hard to differentiate as a business. There are so many freaking businesses out there who kind of do what you do. What differentiates you is, of course, your secret sauce in your brand, your ethos, what solution you give to the customer. So with us, as Santi is saying, like, we're a solution. And people talk about digital transformation. That's like the big buzzword, especially for bigger companies. You need to be digitally transformed. Great. We are a sales system and a USP transformation company. What's that? It's your sales systems are going to be fucking locked in right now. And if you thought they were locked in before, now they will be truly locked in. So you actually learn to be a better sales professional. What I mean by USP transformation, unique selling proposition. That needs to show in every aspect of your brand. LinkedIn, email, your sales pitch. So look, at the worst case scenario, you're going to get world-class sales training with a system, which is LinkedIn right now, but that could easily change in the future. And as you get this foundational channel down, it's your brand, then you can integrate your email system, Pathmonk, whatever, these other supplementary channels start to integrate into this. But at the bare bones, if you have to spend money on one thing, if it's not your personal brand that you've built your entire life, you are missing the point.
Yeah, makes a whole lot of sense. I want to shoot you guys over a couple of questions on the current state of, LinkedIn outreach, actually, because you're very deep in the trenches there. What would you guys consider is the biggest challenge when it comes to bringing innovation to outreach at the moment?
Within LinkedIn specifically, or just like
however you want to take it? It can be LinkedIn. If you see something that is overarching outreach at the moment, feel free to take it.
Sure, Santi, do you have something in mind?
I do. I think there's an oversaturation of people just using LinkedIn to try to cold sell people right away, right? We all get the hundreds of messages in our inbox that say, hey, I'm X person, here's my company, here's what I do, would you like a demo? It's like, hold on a second. Like, LinkedIn is meant for us to network and to grow our network and to genuinely connect with people. Like, I don't want to be sold to right away. Like, let's flirt a little bit, like, let's have a conversation first. Let's see what we're all about. And then if there's any common areas of interest for us to explore, let's explore them. But before you start throwing products and services in my face, like, let's build some rapport. And there's too much of that on LinkedIn, and people are getting tired of it. And so when they see a message, like the scripts that we come up, when they see those, they're a breath of fresh air, because again, like, our goal is to build a relationship with the people that we're connecting with, right? It's one-to-one relationships at scale. That's really like the crux of it, right? But it's relationship selling. I'm not expecting to get a big ticket sale off the very first message that I sent someone. There's more time commitment that has to be involved here, right? And so therefore you have to establish a connection. You have to genuinely want to build a relationship. And then from there, you explore what the possibilities are. And the additional value in, looking to build a relationship is that, not everyone that you come across on LinkedIn is going to be a direct opportunity. That's just the reality, right? However, if you spent the time to build a relationship with them, then you can explore any other areas. It's like, hey, maybe you don't personally apply for the product that we're selling, but if there's anyone in your network who you think might be a good fit for this, I hope you make an introduction. Because I've gone the 9 yards to build a relationship with them, they're much more likely to want to recommend me to one of their people, because,
and vice versa.
And vice versa. And sometimes I even get pitched to on LinkedIn, which I'm totally fine with, because, if there's a product and service that I could use, why the hell wouldn't I want to find out about it? So it's like, but it's really the relationship thing, right? And so, back to the question is like, what kind of things are we seeing on LinkedIn chats? People are just overselling too quickly. Like, you got to build a relationship first.
Makes a whole lot of sense. Paul, you want to add anything?
Santi said it beautifully. I mean, the only thing I like to summarize things, and I mean, the way I look at that is what's lacking is people are not patient enough.
Yeah.
People are lacking empathy and also a long-term vision, which is we're connecting, and guess what? By the time we actually do business, let's face it, we're likely going to be in a different company, or our company's going to be drastically different. However, what's going to make me remember you, and hopefully vice versa, is the values alignment. And before I walk out of this meeting, at the very least, I want to learn something new. I don't care if it's your latest podcast you've downloaded, your latest habit hack. Who are you as a person, right? That's a really key thing. And when timing is right, and we can't really control that, but with proper marketing automation and value-added education, that's a whole other topic. That's the nurturing part. That will play itself out. But for now, is you are aligning on values, you're understanding someone's current problems and perhaps their future problems. And if you vibe well, you're finding a way to keep that relationship going. And that's the other part of the product too, is there's the meeting. You might have an amazing meeting, but timing isn't right. And why force it? But then how do you stay top of mind? How do you stay top of mind, right? There are other systems around nurturing relationships, which can be done through LinkedIn, but also your most traditional channels, guys. Social media, Facebook, etc., email. That could be another part of the conversation, but it's empathy, long-term vision, mutually beneficial relationships. That's such a big thing. That's just, I think it's fundamentally off of society. Go on online dating. It's the same shit. It's too contrived, right? People don't go on that much because they're scattered. So it's breaking through the noise, but if you do it in a genuine way, you are increasing your chances of actual genuine connections. Where, listen, there's actually no agenda. There is, but there isn't. And I think, again, same like dating. You go in with an agenda, it's too forced. It's got to be a little more fluid, but it also can't be mindless. What's the balance of intention, targeting, pitching yourself properly, asking the right questions, being empathetic, and then just planting a seed and letting that play out. And me, as someone who likes to force things, because I can put on my hustle boots and like there's no stopping me. But I've learned to pick my battles better, and I think that does them a favor. So the whole thing is around empathy here, and that's a whole part of the training that you go through with us. Again, it's not a tool; it's a process, a transformation for you to really stand out as a professional, as a salesperson, and as an entrepreneur.
Very cool. Since we, slowly approaching the end of the interview, I would love to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you guys ready for those? We're going to take turns, I would say. So we'll start with Santiago, and then we jump into the next one with Paul. So Santi, what is the last book that you read?
The last book that I read, Atomic Habits, James Clear.
Mm-hmm.
Great book.
Very good. Paul, what's the one single thing that the company is focused on the most at the moment?
We are most focused on transforming our customer sales process, number one. And that's done usually through our training and our content marketing.
Santiago, if there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you would want to have fixed for Tengu today?
This is a rapid fire question. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. If there was, can you repeat the question?
Yep. If there is no boundaries in technology, what's the one thing that you want to have fixed for your company?
Man, there's
AI.
no boundaries.
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah,
it's
I guess,
AI. AI getting to the point. Okay, go.
Yeah. I would say like in marketing specifically, there's a lot of human elements that have to be involved. There's a lot of input that have to be involved. Mm-hmm. And I would love to see those inputs being turned into technology, so that people have to manage technology rather than having to manage those things in a very meticulous manner.
Very cool. Paul, what's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
About the company, last thing kept me awake. You know what? Not a lot. Sanji's doing a fantastic job operating it. I mean, what keeps up at night is to relate to the previous question, is how do we give people more freedom to use their humane elements in their business, which is selling, inspiring staff, and working with customers. And how do we do that? By removing all the BS, all the tedious things that AI can solve or should be able to solve. It's how do we get people to use more human skills for human things, and technology for things that are procedural and should not be done by a human.
A lot of sense. I want to pose the last question to the both of you, starting with Santiago. You know, if there would be one advice that you could give yourself, like zooming back to the first day that you're working on Tango, what's the one advice that you would give yourself?
One advice that I would give myself, you know, it would honestly just be to, put your head down and work. You're going to have ups and downs, in any kind of company experience that you have. And those ups are great, but the downs are the ones that you really learn from. So it's really about, keeping your head down and or keeping your head up and just pushing forward with the work that you're doing and believing that it's the right work. Because even if it's not the right work, you're going to find the right work eventually. You're going to make the mistakes, learn from the mistakes, and eventually end up where you want to end up.
Very cool. Paul, for you?
Do not bullshit yourself or your customers. What do I mean by that? Number one, I have bullshitted myself when egos got in the way. Ooh, we went on Dragon's Den. We got this awesome blog post out. We had this interview. We're killing it, right? Look at the bottom line: revenue, staff morale, and the way you are building your leads, and also your business model. Those are things that matter. Everything else is just icing on the cake. So don't bullshit yourself. Look at the data, understand where you're going, and also ask questions to people that are maybe 1 or 2 years ahead of you, mentors, just so you can shortcut your learning. Sometimes you want to just like do it and learn it, and you could have learned faster by, again, throwing your ego out the door, asking someone else. And part two, don't bullshit your customers. Back to what we said before, practice what you preach. If you're selling something that that generally you're not even using that much yourself, or you're not the customer, there's usually a pretty big misalignment there. There has to be at least a personal anecdote of you using it, and customers can feel when you're just selling something for the hell of it, and then selling something because it's genuinely helped you, or what Santi said, using something that created this conversation. It's pretty hard to say, oh, your process doesn't work when this process got you on a call with us.
Exactly.
That's the I got you moment. Not to be like I got you, but look, we're living it, and this is something you can do as well. Join the club.
Yeah. Proof is in the pudding.
Very cool, guys. I really appreciate that you guys took the time today for the Pathmark Presents podcast. I want to give the very last word to you, maybe Paul. Today, what's the one thing that they should remember about Tango if they forget everything else that we just discussed?
Yeah, right. We threw a lot their way. Look, what we just talked about. Practice what you preach, and with us, we make sales about genuine relationship building and adding value, right? Instead of you trying to trick or pressure your prospects, your worst case scenario with us is you're going to be learning how to transform your sales system, your personal brand, how you do customer discovery, and how you plant seeds for the future. Remember, Tango is creating a dance between you and your customers or your referral partners. Make sure you're moving in the same direction in a genuine and graceful way. That's what we're all about.
Thanks a lot, guys, for being part of Pathmark Presents today.
Thanks so much for having us. This was extremely stimulating. It's cool for us to sometimes be able to reflect on all that we've done through these kind of conversations, because we're just so in the weeds. So this is a very good exercise, even for Santi and I, to be like, oh wow, there's a lot of cool stuff that we're doing. We're getting excited about what we're doing. Hopefully that reflects to the viewers as well. Really, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
appreciate it.
Santiago.
Thanks so much.